Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. I am Rick Weaver, your host. I have Mr. Blake Duckworth, our co-host. On what Blake's doing over there. You got your mic muted, Blake.
No, it's not.
But again, welcome to another show. Tonight we have back as our guest, Mr. Carter Buschardt. Carter is the author of Sasquatch Evidence of an Enigma 1 and 2. Carter is a BFRO investigator, works with them. We're going to bring him on here momentarily, but I'm going to let Mr. Blake go ahead and do our intro. Go ahead, Blake, and open the show, buddy.
How's everyone doing? Hope everyone is doing well. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, bell notification, like, and a comment. That's pretty much Ricky.
Alrighty, guys.
If you don't mind, go check out Mr. Carter's book. Show him some support. I know he just come out with another one, didn't he?
Right.
Yep. Go check out both books if you don't mind.
Right. Again, Carter, check these books out. You'll find them fascinating reading. Let's go ahead and bring Mr. Carter on. Hello, Carter.
Welcome. There he is.
Show, buddy.
How's it going, guys?
Going good, buddy.
So, this is the first one, book number 1, and like you had on the promo up there, book number 2, Sasquatch Evidence of an Enigma 2, Mike Patterson has written. He wrote a story for MUFON, MUFO, Mutual UFO Network, and I put his op-ed piece that he wrote for them as the last chapter of my book, and it is really, really good if you really want to know what's going on in the quantum multidimensional world that we are discussing and dealing with, whether anybody knows it or not. That's kind of what we're dealing with. It's very, very good piece. It's about 8 pages, but it's a really good piece, and I highly suggest y'all picking up on that. You can get the book at www.relichominid.com. That's my website. I sign all the books that go out. That's the color version. You can buy a Kindle version on Amazon. I'm not doing any black and white books because I can't see doing a black and white book when you got nothing but beautiful green foliage and forests. They just don't come out that well. So I do the color and the Kindle version. I did a black and white version of the first book, but I'm not going to do it on the second one, I don't think. So anyway,
right.
So it's head scratching stuff. It's the woo, but so many people are telling me things, and you've probably heard some of the same things, and you just can't come to grips with it if you're in the ape only camp. There's more to them. I believe there is more to them. Can't necessarily explain it all, but the people are coming out of the woodwork, which is why I really wrote the second book, because there is some oddball stuff going on, and you just cannot, if you're just flesh and blood only, and I do believe they are flesh and blood, but they can also interact in our world and from a variety of different spots in the world.
Like we talked about on last episode, I mean, there's definitely some type of paranormal aspect about them. I mean, what it is, why it is, how it is, that's the main question. But I mean, you can pretty much say for sure they are paranormal events, paranormal whatever that surround this being a lot of times.
Yeah, and the thing is, because we don't have a body on a slab, we don't know anything really. We suppose things. We personally, each one of us have different beliefs and things we think are pretty much possible, if not probable. But because we don't know anything, sometimes humans would tend to go to a paranormal when you can't explain it. Well, it must be from outer space, or it must be from something. It must be paranormal aspects and things like that, because we can't explain it. Well, just because you can't explain it in a flesh and blood world doesn't mean it is paranormal. But when people are describing
Yes.
paranormal acts over and over,
That's just the best way to explain it.
yeah, you pigeonhole it. You put it somewhere because, well, that my brain is now satisfied. I've got it put somewhere.
You don't have an answer for it.
Yeah, I have it in a comfortable place that makes me feel like I'm happy with my explanation. But when these people are telling me, oh my gosh, the stuff, we didn't even, touch on it last time. And really, and it's just fascinating, and every week I get another email or two from somebody that says, oh, I got to tell you this. Will you, call me or email me? And it's just mind boggling. So these people don't know each other. They don't want any money. They don't want any fame or fortune. They don't want their name in lights. They don't want their location or anything out there. They want their kids involved, nothing. They just want to tell the story. Well, why do you want to tell a story if you're hoaxing me where no one's going to hear it and you don't get the satisfaction of going, hey, I got you, because
there's nothing to gain.
Yeah, there's nothing to gain. It's complete anonymity. So they want nothing. They just want some place to go and tell a story and not be laughed at. And that, I've said that over and over and over, but it's the truth. And BFRO, they have a large database, but they do not support or entertain any kind of paranormal or anything, any quantum, anything of that nature. And that's a sad, sad state. It really is, because you're a database. You're a clearinghouse for people's events. And so if you can't be honest and report it with even a disclaimer, we don't necessarily support this line of thought, but this is what these people are saying. That's all you got to do. And, if the potential embarrassment is off your hands, you can wash your hands and say, well, we don't support that, but I'm going to tell you what people are saying. That's all you got to do.
Yep.
It's the honest thing. It's the honest thing to do, So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but it's just frustrating to me. And I feel the frustration of the people, because they're going, well, the investigator I talked to was kind of laughing at me. He was trying to explain it away with something else, and he was just kind of dismissing me. You know the process, how that works. And it's irritating. It's insulting. It's insulting to them, because they've had an event that's changed their lives. And it's not their imagination. I've talked to a few people that have some imagination, and many people reading these books might go, okay, yeah, right. That's not it. There's something going on. There's an undercurrent of strangeness going on, of high strangeness, and we have to embrace it. If it doesn't work, if it doesn't explain itself out down the road, when we finally get the answer to these creatures, these beings, get the body on the slab, if that's what everybody wants, well, then you can just put it away. So, well, that was a theory, but since we didn't know, we have to consider everything. And so you can just put it away. You don't have to be embarrassed or hide your head or anything. You're an investigator. You're researching. You're going to take where the information takes you. If you don't want to go down that road, well, I don't like that road. Well, what are you doing in the business? What are you doing, researching the creatures, and what are you doing going out in the woods yourself if you're not trying to get to the bottom of whatever it is,
Yeah, because eventually, if one thing don't explain it and you don't come up with answers, you have to follow other avenues.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, some people just don't want to go down the road, and I understand that. But we're all taught, like we went over this last time, from the day we're born, our teachers who have been taught by teachers, who have been taught by teachers,
These
go
things
down.
aren't supposed to exist.
Yeah. And so if your teacher, who was taught by a teacher, who was taught by a teacher, who was taught by a teacher, who was told that none of this can ever happen, there's no apes, there's no nothing, there's no UFOs. Yeah, oh, guess what? There are UFOs now. How about that? They were lying to us. So what's the story with Sasquatch? Same thing. They just don't want to tell you until they deem it necessary for you to know. So,
And even then, anything that's revealed by our government, you still don't know how true it is. It's like everybody talking about, all this UFO evidence. They're only telling us what they want us to know.
Yeah. Oh, there's a friend of mine. That's my sister-in-law, Kathy Lynn Deacon. Hey, Kathy. Howdy. That's cool. I didn't have that turned on last time. It was really cool, but yeah, there's so many. There's so many fascinating stories, and tales, and I don't know what you guys want to talk about specifically tonight, or any questions that the viewers might have. There's so many tales in there.
Basically, Carter, whatever you want to talk about.
Okay, I want to talk about my childhood. It was really terrible.
Hey, if that's,
Okay.
if that's
I'll say that was the
what you
wrong
wanna talk about.
Different therapy. That's the wrong. I thought I was at my therapist. Sorry.
we can have a therapy session.
Yeah. My daddy was so mean to me. Well, there's several, but there's one guy in here. I don't know if we talked about this. The guy that had missing time with a Bigfoot.
Yes, I do believe so.
Did we? Okay. He had 6 hours of missing time. Him and his dog woke up the next morning.
Yep. He was in the trailer or the camper or whatever.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff, and he in the book he just talks about if I had somebody tell me that they saw a Bigfoot, I would have said you're full of poop. Back then, and then when he started having it, he and his wife were having experiences. He was going, "That can't be," because he's a boring guy. That's what he says. I worked my entire life to be boring and unremarkable because I just he operates a business. I want to do my business. I want to raise a family, live in the woods, and I want a simple life. I'm a successful businessman, and all this other stuff starts happening around me. And that's what everybody says. I didn't believe until I saw it. I didn't believe it until it happened to me, or until it happened to my wife, or until it happened to my husband. And a lot of them are non-believers, and all of a sudden, and I'm not talking about just an average sighting. I mean, the average sighting is incredible enough, but when you throw in the esoteric, abstract stuff that we all are taught that this stuff can't happen, it blows our minds. And like some of them are devastated and affected for years and years. Some of these people have sat on some of this stuff for 10, 20, 30, 40 years before they say anything because they just got ridiculed and laughed at by the people closest to them. And so when they come forth, it's like it just gushes out. It just comes out, and they want to tell it all. And you do feel like a therapist because they're getting release and relief from being able just to regurgitate all of the stuff that they've had to sit on for all these years because no one will believe them or even listen to it. So it's fascinating stuff. I don't think we talked about the guy up in Canada. I think we might have touched on it. And he's in is that what the creature was? He was a friend of his brought a blind date for him, and he lived in the middle of nowhere, and this has been going on for 50 years with this guy. And there's another, the story, the Janice Carter book, 50 Years with Bigfoot. That is a great book, and it documents. Have you all read that book? Janice Carter, Coy.
I haven't. I've actually spoken with Miss Carter, and I've actually tried to get her on the show.
She's in your neighborhood.
I'm sorry.
She's in your neighborhood, I think, Tennessee or
Tennessee.
Georgia.
Yeah,
Tennessee. And fascinating story, and there's so much. That's the thing. You've got so much minute detail when these people are going through these explanations and revelations. And one of the ways that I determine that someone's yanking my chain or not is, there's all kinds of ways to, interrogate somebody or interview them without them knowing you've asked the same question 4 different ways. And they just, they answer and they correct minutia. So if someone's going to yank your chain, they're not going to correct just minute details that are almost meaningless. But if you get them wrong and they correct you, over and over the same way each time, either they're the greatest actor of all time, they've got it memorized like a script, or it's something that has really happened. No, it didn't. It wasn't a big branch. It was a rock. Oh, yeah, that's right. They remember stuff that they're filling in the blanks, and so with there's so much detail in some of these descriptions, but that's just how you know these people are being sincere. There could be an actor in there, but I don't think so.
Not everybody. Not everybody. I mean, you're going to, don't get me wrong. You are going to have that one person that's very good at telling stories, or whatever they want to gain from it. Sure, but
Yeah,
like I tell people, you take, just for example, in a small ratio, you take 100 people. Yeah, you could probably discredit probably 30 of those people. But
hmm
what about the rest of them?
yeah, exactly. And uh, it's hard to remember a lie. So if you're lying and BSing, you're gonna screw up.
But if
Because
you had something, I wouldn't say traumatic, but very, just very, what word am I looking for?
well, traumatic actually is a good word, really, for some of these
Very
people.
significant event. It's going to be imprinted in your brain.
Yeah, you're standing 10 feet away from a creature that's twice your height and
You're
three
not
times
going to
your
forget
size.
what you saw. Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is. And so, well, this guy in Canada, he is 65. He can go back to about the age of 10. And this stuff has been going on with him for quite a while. And him and his dad had a lot of experiences together. And the one, which is rather simplistic, he lived by himself and he'd been having things going on and off. And his good buddy showed up one day with his girlfriend and a blind date, a girl that they thought he might like. It was his friend's girlfriend's best friend. So they show up at his cabin. They're out in the middle of nowhere up in Canada, and they brought beer and lunch, like a little picnic lunch. And he had just finished building his cabin, so they were all sitting outside and having a good time, getting to know each other. And all of a sudden, you heard these gigantic cracks, like a tree branch just being broken, and it was right in front of their faces and right behind them and right over their heads. But there was nothing there. But it was like explosion, like when a big tree pop, and everyone's looking around, go, what was that? And he goes, I don't know. It happens every now and then. The place is haunted. Somebody said it was a haunted location. And so I just ignore it and just don't worry about it. Let's keep, getting to know each other and all that. So this went on for about 20 or 30 minutes. And then they started hearing foot stomps. And, they're 2 and 3 feet away from each other. And they hear foot crunching on the gravel and walking and stomping, and these twigs and branches being snapped like explosive sounds. And they're all looking around and there's nothing there. And everyone starts freaking out. And they left. And he never saw his friend. His friend never came back. And he never saw the girl again either. So, and these disembodied voices and things were happening quite often. And there's so many more stories that he has where, and it has to do, I think, with infrasound or, mind speak or some type of hypnosis where he's being made to see things that he could have sworn aren't there. The creatures just appeared in his cabin. And this one creature, oh, here's the cool part. The creature on this book right here, when I wrote this book, I had no idea. Sibylla Irwin did this drawing. She's done a lot of drawings for a lot of people. She's a very, very good artist. And if you ever had a sighting and you want someone to draw what you saw, she's like a police artist. She can take your words and your vision and put it into this. So anyway, this creature here, and I didn't know this when I picked that photo for the book. She said, well, I was looking for a photo, and she said, well, here's one I just got. And I said, ooh, I like that because that face just really, I'll hold this up because it is a really telling photo.
Well, and that's what a lot of people, I hear a lot, we get a lot of reports of their faces kind of having that Native American look to them.
Yeah.
Humanoid /
Mhm.
Native American / kind of grillish ape look, and that's kind of what that picture looks like. So that
Mhm.
would be a
But
good.
this was the creature, and I didn't know this at the time. And this was a guy who reached out to me after the book came out, and he said, "Oh, by the way, that creature that's on the cover of your book, that's the one that's been coming to my house and visiting me and my dad for the last 40 or 50 years." I had no idea. It was just a more synchronicity where this guy reaches out to me and emails me, say, "I'd like to talk to you about what's been going on," because nobody will talk to me. And so I had picked that because the eyes just spoke to me, because they just look right through you. And this is the creature, and he calls him Zap. We came up with the name, he and I. We came up with the name Zap because he had been zapped many times. He had been, hit with infrasound or some kind of force that knocked him to the ground many times, knocked him unconscious a couple of times. Not in a hostile way, but it just was the result of them showing the power, and he just wasn't prepared for it. He didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they didn't know their own strength. But this creature and another female always showed up together. And it's a fantastical story, and he felt like he was trying to get set up with this creature, and he rejected it. And when that creature saw him with a female, human female, and his friend brought that friend by, he ran him off because he wanted him to not physically or sexually hook up, but unite with the female that he kept bringing. And she would show herself, and it was all very kind of a presentation where they would just appear in the house, and you have to just wrap your head around this stuff. Something is just appearing in your house. It's like Twilight Zone, Star Trek, but it is kind of like the Star Trek. They would just materialize. There'd be kind of a gray cloud, just a kind of a fuzziness to the air, and all of a sudden they were there, and then they would leave the same way they came in. What do you say to that? You're full of crap, or tell me more, And but there's so much going on with this guy. I can't even hardly go through it here in the time we have, because I could write a whole book on just his stuff. But this creature would come and go whenever. He would come and go and show himself to him and his dad when they were out hunting and fishing, and they were trying to tell them of the human's place in the world, on the planet, in the universe. And he didn't get it. He didn't understand what they were trying to tell him and show him. And so they kept coming, and they were more like, "Well, you're going to understand now." And they would try something different. So there was a lot of visitation, a lot of, just appearing and disappearing, a lot of disembodied sounds and noises. He had gifting dragonflies, these little blue dragonflies that are apparently very plentiful up in Canada where he lives.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Like in cases like that, do you think it's more of a connection to the actual people, or is it just a coincidence they're in the right place, right time situation?
That's actually a good question. But, it was happening to his dad before it ever happened to him. And he was with his dad, but his dad always kind of blew it off like, "You didn't see that. It was something else." And I think they were chosen. I think the guy chose his dad and went at the right time. David is the name I gave him. That's not his real name, but David is the name in the book.
They got used to him being with his dad and become comfortable with him, and it led from there.
And he would show him stuff. But the dad, once the son became, got into his early teens, puberty time area, he was starting to get it. And the dad would always say, "No, you didn't see that. What it was something." He would always try to explain it away because he didn't want to deal with it. And so, but they went through so many things. And on his deathbed, when his dad died, I can't remember if this 5, 6, 7 years ago, I believe, his dad said, "You did see what you saw." And, David said, I know. And so the dad finally admitted after all these years, because he was trying to protect him. And I think it broke up his dad's marriage with his mom, because his mom didn't believe any of it. She was seeing things in total denial, and he was trying to explain the stuff to her, and she wasn't having any of it, So they ended up getting divorced. So it was just him and his dad. But they had a creature which he called, and one of the chapters is called the Hairy Spaniard, and he described the Sasquatch as a swarthy Hispanic male with dark brown hair, and he had really brown skin, like a very tanned Hispanic or Spanish person. So that's what he called him, the Hairy Spaniard. And that's the title of one of the stories in his chapters called the Hairy Spaniard, because that's what he was. And when they saw this creature one time, they'd see it in the woods, and then they wouldn't see it, then they wouldn't see it. And they go, it was hiding. And then it would get down and run on all fours. And when it was running on all fours, it was picking up trees and bushes and rocks and getting out of its way while it was running on all fours. Just a spectacular thing. But when it ducked down on all fours, they go, well, where'd he go? Where'd he go? And every time they said that, this is on just one event, it would stand up and show itself. Then it'd go back down on the ground. Well, now where'd he go? And it'd go stand back up. So that's where they decided, and this was later in life, a few years before his dad died, that this creature was maybe assigned to them because he felt compelled every time. And they didn't say it out loud, but even if they just thought, oh God, where'd he go now? Boom, he would just pop up. He'd stand up, let them see him, and then he'd get back down on all fours and go hide. Go hide behind a tree, get down on all fours, go down in the shrubs. And so every time they thought, either in their head or said it out loud, God, where'd he go? He was just here. He would pop up just so they could see him. And they felt like he was obeying a command of some type, because they could just think it, and he would stand up and show where he was, even if they didn't say it out loud. So that's where they came to the conclusion that he was this creature. It was a male. It was assigned to them. And this isn't the same one as Zap. This is a different creature. This is the one that was materializing in his house a lot. So, and they decided that he has to be assigned to them to guide them, or because every time they thought something, he would show them something, like they were just thinking it, and it would stand up and do their bidding, so to speak. It's a weird relationship, and that to me, I'm going, well, I got to think about that, because I really hadn't heard that, but it makes sense, because in the sincerity in his dad saying, that day that I said you didn't see that, you did see it. You've seen everything. And he goes, I know, Dad. So he knew, but he wasn't going to argue with his dad that I know what's going on, because they worked together all the time. But this stuff, it went on for 50 years. I mean, 45 to 50 years. He remembers from as early as 10 years old, and he's 65. So 50, 55 years. And he got some of the stuff I'm telling you where he did have a girlfriend for a time, and they were rowing a boat out into the lake, and they saw trees just flying up out of this island, just flying up out of the air, into the air, and dropping back down in the water, and all this destruction. It was a clear sunny day. There's no wind, no rain, no storm, no nothing. These trees are just being uprooted, 200-foot trees going several hundred feet in the air and then dropping back down onto the land or into the water. And nobody saw it but them. It was just like when I told you about when I took my wife down to the spooky area. And yeah. It's the same thing. Did it really happen, or was it something they were made to see to show what could be done, how strong and powerful they were, how the world is not what you really think it is, and this is what I'm going to make you see. But they were seeing the water, those trees were water and jumping in the water, splashing, and they got to another island and hid in the rocks until the storm or whatever it was over. And they went into town, and nobody saw anything, but him and his girlfriend saw it, and they saw the trees falling in the water and floating and all of this stuff. And he went to the general store, later that day and said, "Hey, what about that storm? That was weird." And they're going, "What do you mean? What storm? What are you talking about?" Nobody in his neighborhood, and there's not that many people in the neighborhood because it's out in the middle of nowhere, saw anything. But they saw it and they experienced it. And his girlfriend at the time, she saw it. She's going, "Oh my God, what is this?" And she was not aware of the Sasquatch relationship. He kind of sat on that for a while because he didn't want to chase another girlfriend off. But you just have to go, are you nuts? Or are you telling me the truth? Are you seeing something that's not there because you've got some kind of mental break? And I did some research. Paranoid schizophrenics and schizophrenics can hallucinate, but there's no other medical condition except drugs or possibly infrasound can make you see things that are not there or hear things that are not there. Just like when I talked about Ron Moorhead's group and they were hearing their cant being destroyed.
Boy, didn't they come out? Yep, and it wasn't.
Nothing had happened. They heard 15 or 20 minutes of everything they owned being, the horses running off and stuff being thrown down the mountainside. They go, "Oh my God!" But they went out there and nothing had happened. Not a thing had happened. It's crazy. So, but you hear this from a lot of people, and I've been through it. I took my wife to an area and we experienced the same thing. We were both in the same place, and I was seeing something that was not there, and she was experiencing the creepy weirdness that you get when you're in an infrasound situation. So that happens. That is a real thing. It's happened to me. It's happened to other people, and it happened to Ron Moorhead. And this may have been the same thing, although he will swear right now that these trees were being uprooted and flying up into the sky several hundred feet. These 200-foot tall, cypress and redwoods and the spruces and giant trees, ancient trees. And it was as real as it could be. But nobody in town saw it, knew anything about it. I don't know what you're talking about. It's been a beautiful day all day. So what do you do with that? What do you say to somebody that tells you that stuff? The sincerity, and he got emotional sometimes, when he was telling me these stories, reliving it. I got to take a moment, just you have to take a break because he's reliving these things, and you can tell that it still bothers him. That he's deeply affected. He's deeply affected more than he can understand what they've been trying to teach him, and part of it's because his brain won't comprehend it. Because, like everybody else, we've been told that XXXYZ doesn't exist and can't exist. So you're trying to cram Star Trek, Star Wars mentality down somebody who knows that doesn't exist, but it's real in the movies, but it's not real in real life. Well, this is real life. So there's a conundrum there, and a lot of people have the conundrum. They try to wrap their heads around something that you can't explain. And nobody else wants to listen to it because they can't explain it either. So let's talk about my favorite TV show or something. Let's change the subject. That's a baloney. I can't grasp it. It's just, it's shocking. It's just incredible, and one day if we actually know the truth, and we will, just like the UFOs, okay, they're there, they're real. We're going to know about Sasquatch when somebody deems it time. We're going to know the answers, and it won't be anything like a dumb ape in the woods,
Right. That just goes to show that these creatures can actually manipulate time and space.
Yeah, and you're looking at a gorilla-type looking creature. The last thing you're going to do is give it credit for any type of intelligence other than swinging from a tree and, sticking a twig in the ground to dig for ants. That's the sum of their existence as far as most people know. Have you ever gone to the zoo and looked at a gorilla and look them in the eyes, and with the exception of 2 to 4% of DNA, that could be you or me. You could be the gorilla. You know what I mean? 10% of DNA, I could be that dog.
Well, I mean, even gorillas themselves are very intelligent. I mean, we're talking about gorillas. I mean, they're one of the smartest things next to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's not that much difference. And, just because they don't say or do what you expect them doesn't mean they can't do what you don't expect them to do. It doesn't mean they can't do it. You just don't believe they can do it. And they've been portrayed as, in the Tarzan movies and the, King Kong movies as these big, vicious, snarling creatures. But that's not the case. I don't believe that's the case. I believe there's far more to them. And that's what the books are about. And that's, these people telling me you just, and the big database groups, BFRO and others, they look on that with disdain. It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen, and they take all that woo stuff out of the reports when you turn them in. And that's just, that's insulting. That's very insulting to the people that are going through these experiences. Yeah. So,
like we were talking about before, you can't, it's disrespect to somebody to tell them, otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you weren't there. You don't know. They, most honest people are just telling what they experienced.
Yeah. And they don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. I think it's entirely possible that these creatures, and I believe they do have other skill sets. We just, aren't prepared to.
Like we said before, like we said in the last episode, whether if that be something that we possessed at one point in time, and we've lost it. We lost connection with it. We don't know how to tap into it or use it anymore. I mean, it could be just a simple answer as that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we probably had all those skill sets, and with, we've progressed it all out of ourselves. We have computers that do everything for us. We have cars.
We don't need it no more. Yeah.
We don't. And so it's gone. Except for, the shamans and the monks and the meditators and the people that are getting to know themselves and being at one with the universe and getting, there are people that are experiencing that, and only people that are experiencing that will understand that other people are experiencing it,
Just talking about life in general, there's so much more to our existence than what people even begin to think. Like, we don't understand anything about our world, really. I mean, we do, but we don't. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We don't know our true existence and why everything is the way it is.
No. Well, we know what we're told. They tell us what to believe, what to think, and they put it in books, and they teach it in school. So that's what you think. And anything outside of that is preposterous, So you just can't say this stuff doesn't happen. You just can't say it doesn't happen unless you can.
Now, and the sad part about all that, as far as what we and our children are taught in schools, they're wanting to go back and erase part of our history now.
Oh yeah,
because of events that happened 200 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're wanting to wipe it completely out of the books.
Yeah.
And as far as Sasquatch is concerned, why won't the government just come out and say that these creatures are real?
You got to think about it this way too. Just talking about wiping out history. What happens in 300 years? What everybody's taught. They won't know anything about what happened. Now and in the past.
Yeah,
it'd be a completely different story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. The Confederate, debacle with, let's get rid of all the statues and all this, and that never happened. Well, it did happen. It is part of our history. It's part of our heritage, good, bad, or indifferent. It's part of what we are and what the world is, and that's how we got to the place we are. And and nobody likes some of that, but that's part of it. But you get it, the UFOs, they didn't exist. They don't exist now. Oh yeah, they do. We've been lying to you for 80 years plus. We just didn't want to tell you. We've known about them, and yeah, they exist, And so it's going to be the same with Sasquatch. When the technology and DNA catches up, they're going to have to start throwing us little snippets,
tidbits in there. Yeah,
and it really makes you wonder what has been erased in history. Things that we can't explain. Just talking about Egypt and the pyramids, and just things that have happened in history, like that we don't have no history of other than a little bit. What if, kind of like same situation we're in now, something happened, they're like, oh, let's not tell that story no more, and we're changing it. Just forgotten history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you've got to probe if you have any curiosity. And some people don't care one way or the other if there's a hominid of some type, a related or unrelated hominid. There's a member of the family tree. Someone, they just have a passing interest. Well, that's interesting. That's cool. You don't really care. But if you are really curious about what's going on in the real world and the universe and on our planet, you're going to have questions, and you deserve logical and truthful answers. And why don't they say anything about UFOs? Well, because there's technology. Whoever has the technology rules the planet. So if we're capturing, alien craft or getting their technology from reverse engineering or whatever, we're going to have the power. Russia, China, America, they all want to be the big dog. So that's why if they know anything about UFOs, they're not going to tell you anything, because that gets the cat out of the bag. Knowledge is power. What's going to be the same with the Sasquatch? And I think the thing is, they're withholding the knowledge about these creatures because there is something. If it's just an ancestor of man, what's the big deal? What are you going to upset? The religious group or the whatever groups, the evolutionary groups and all of that all have their theories. Are you worried about upsetting them if that's all you got to hide? Or is there something more? To me, you don't hide a bunch of, mundane stuff like that. I'm not calling, that mundane, but I mean, that would be a huge discovery in and of itself. But that's not that big a deal to keep from everybody. But there's got to be something else going on, and they're totally aware of it, or they wouldn't be sitting on it. And I guarantee you, they do know. The lumber companies and the paper companies and the government and the science and the forestry service, they know. But they're sitting on it for some reason. We don't want to scare people. We don't want to have them not come to our forest and pay the money.
No, it's more along the lines, I do believe, as that these creatures, they know some of the abilities that these creatures possess, and they can't control it. And as you said, Carter, it's all about control.
Mm-hmm. And there's got to be something there that can be monetized or used for control or power, or they wouldn't be sitting on it. I mean, that's just my logical mind tells me that. Some people won't say I'm logical, but I do have a logical thought process about this stuff. So it's just mind-boggling that they just won't come clean. And what else would they be sitting on it for if there's not something that they think is going to be earth-shattering to mankind?
Well, if you've got a creature, if they know that there's a creature out there that can actually change your thoughts and your mind process, and you not being able to have any ability to stop it, then of course they're going to sit on it. Of course they don't want the American people to know.
Well, I mean, not just that too. I mean, it kind of goes back to it's what we're taught thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't. I mean, it took forever for them to acknowledge UFOs. I mean, Same with that. I mean, we're taught one thing for so long, and I mean, our government don't like to admit that, that they're liars about certain things. So I mean, it could just be that too. I mean, they just don't want to acknowledge them. One, because of scientific proof. I mean, yes, depending on what you think or believe. I mean, I do believe we have DNA evidence. I mean, do we more than likely have bodies? Yes. I mean, I'm sure they've got plenty of bodies.
Carter, you got a question here. Do you think that these creatures are natural human mutants?
I saw that from Joni. I was going to bring that up.
Right.
That's actually a pretty good question. The working theory is that they were here first, and we came along many years after. The Earth was seeded. I think the humans were tampered with somewhere along the line because we weren't progressing quickly enough as far as developing our brains and our potential. But if you talk to the Native Americans and shamans and other people, the theory is that these creatures were sent here and have been here long before we got here. I'm not sure the timeline, but the Bible is what they put us here roughly 5,000-6,000 years ago. God created man. I mean,
Yeah, I seen something. I can't remember where I seen it. Supposedly the DNA is like the DNA that we have found that they can't explain. It was like 90% human or something like that, 10% something else, and the 10% other DNA. Of course, they don't know where it came from, but something about that could be possibly like 16,000 years old or something like that. I don't remember the exact.
Yeah, well, the DNA studies show the one that Scott Carpenter does. He's come up with some stuff, interesting stuff, by the way. That it is human female and unknown hominid male.
Yep.
What do you say to that? Unknown hominid. Well, you don't have a whole lot of choices, and so and if you get into the Nephilim, and did the fallen angels mate with human women and create the red-haired giants? I mean, there's so many things thrown out about there, but a working theory that is gaining traction, and it has logical possibilities, is that we came along long after these creatures were here, and they are here to help the planet and keep the planet in one piece and keep us from destroying ourselves and the planet. And they may or may not like that job that has been bestowed upon them, but that's sort of their role here on the planet. And they can come and go between several dimensions. Science, I think, admits to anywhere from 6 to 11 dimensions and a possible 21 dimensions, and that gets into the quantum part that I have not grasped yet. But there's those theories out there, and quantum math, quantum physics can only be proven with math, and it can be proven. Any theory they have in the quantum range can be proven with math. And if you want to disprove it, you can't just say, I don't agree with that, it can't be. You have to disprove it with math. And that comes from scientists and others that deal in the quantum thing. So the quantum, anything's possible with science because they can prove it mathematically, that anything we think about, dimensions, how many billions of civilizations possibly are in the universe, and the Drake equation and all that kind of stuff. You just have to go, we can't be the only ones, And I think the reason we don't know about what the Sasquatch role is here is because there is something to them. They just don't want us to know until they're ready. I do not believe for 1 minute that they think we can't handle it. We just handled COVID, a crappy election, and the politicians, and the way the whole world is being run right now, big business, everything is just, the prices are going through the roof. I mean, we are living through all of that. You think we can't handle a little knowledge about creatures that are on the planet or maybe off the planet? Somebody, it was on CNN the other day. It's like they told us about the UFOs, and it's like, okay, now what? I mean, it was like not that big a deal, because I think people are used to thinking that there is life elsewhere, but the possibility of life is elsewhere. So it's not that big a thing. The more you deny it, the more ticked off we're going to get, because why are you denying that? We all believe it's a possibility. Why don't you just educate us a little bit more? Tell us what you know. So now they're feeding us little snippets of the UFOs are real, but Now they're backtracking. Well, we don't know what they are, but we don't know
Well,
if
they're
it's.
still not explaining anything. I mean, they're just acknowledging the fact of videos and, sightings and stuff like that. That's all they've acknowledged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but now they're kind of backtracking and say, well, we can't say that it's intelligent life. We don't know what they are. We're saying there is some craft out there. We don't know how they are. They're not made on Earth, but we can't say what made them. Well, that's just insult. That's double talk. Well, somebody made them, but we don't know who made it. So it may not be alien. What kind of dummy could build a spacecraft that could, fly light years and appear and disappear and go 90 degrees at 1,000 miles an hour and take a right turn? I mean,
It's not us.
don't insult me. Don't insult me with that crap. Come on, man. It's the same with Sasquatch. They're doing and seeing things that are not possible by the standards set by the government in the educational system and science. So something has to be wrong. Something has to be up. But no, you're not ready for it. We can't tell you yet. We haven't tapped into what they can do, so we're not ready. You're just not going to know until we say. And that tells me right there's something worth knowing. It's just it is.
Right. Blake and I had our own. UFO encounter a few months back, and still until this day, I can't really wrap my mind around what we saw.
I've had two that I can't explain. The one that I'll let Ricky finish the story, but I've had two UFO. I'm not going to be tinfoil hat and be like, this is exactly what it was, but I cannot explain what they were.
You look good in tinfoil. You might look good in tinfoil, You get it kind of, a camo tinfoil, you might look pretty good. Right?
Yeah, he probably looked pretty decent.
Yeah. But no,
we were on a paranormal investigation, and we actually saw this craft probably about, I don't know, what would you say, Blake? How high would you say that thing was that night?
Not very high, maybe 400 foot, maybe.
This thing, Carter, had it was kind of a V-shaped deal with lights on it, but no sound whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And you could tell this thing, it was no helicopter, nothing like that, nothing that we know of that our government would be hiding or whatever. I don't know, but it blew my mind for me, blew Blake's mind for him. We've actually got it on camera. But, like I say, until this day, I still don't know what it was.
The only weird thing about it is it didn't, it wasn't like a traditional UFO.
They took Blake over.
You there?
Yeah, what was that, Blake?
Okay. Sitting there talking
Go
about
ahead.
it, they're listening.
Yeah.
But it didn't do no weird motions or anything. Basically, it actually went pretty slow, and basically it just went out of our sight. It didn't make no wild turns or anything like that. It didn't go at no high rate of speeds. We just watched it go off in distance. So I don't know what it was. It didn't have no sound. That's the main thing. As close as it was, as low as it was, and just the shape of it. I don't know what craft we have that, not saying we don't have a craft that couldn't do that, but I doubt they would have been testing it where we were at.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's a question. Are either one of you crazy or insane? Were you on drugs or drinking that night? No. Okay, and there's two of you there, and you're bouncing it off each other. You're both seeing and experiencing it. So you're rational, sane people. How do you explain that? Like they used to, swamp gas.
That's like the other sighting I had. I don't know what it was. Basically, we were at a school away from our fairgrounds on 4th of July, and we went there, so we didn't have to go into the fairgrounds to watch the fireworks. Well, we're sitting at this school. There are mountain range behind us. And basically out of the mountain range, out of the hills comes three balls of light, 3 red balls of light. They come over us. Same thing, not very high. Now, these probably couldn't have been probably about the same height, 300 or 400 foot.
Mhm.
They were perfectly spaced, and they just went out and just disappeared. No sound, no nothing, and they were a whole bunch of people there. So
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. I mean, it wasn't a drone because they didn't make no sounds, and
Mhm.
you couldn't see no definition to them. Like you couldn't tell what shape they were. They were just red balls of light.
Yeah. Well, the world is not what we think it is. The world is what we are told it is, because that's all we have to go on. And then when you experience something like you guys just talked about, how do you explain that? Give me a rational explanation of what that is.
I ran through everything in my head, especially those balls of lights. I ran through everything in my head. They're not a explanation for it. They're not flares.
There
They're
isn't.
not drones. They're not planes. They're what else? They're nothing else it could be.
Yeah. And here's the deal.
What? I mean, it's not an animal. I mean,
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. I have a habituation site here in Missouri that I visit a couple times a year, and I haven't seen the craft, but they have had 200 and 300 foot long tubes of light, a craft, a silverish craft, slowly going over their house right after they had Sasquatch. I mean, they have regular interactions with these Sasquatch weekly. I mean, they see stuff all the time. But they've had craft fly over low, like 100 feet or less, giant, couple of football fields long, just going right by, and they're just watching this thing. They're sane, rational. They're very deeply religious people. I mean, they're like, their feet are firmly planted on the ground, and this stuff is happening to them. They're interacting with these creatures. I've sat on the front porch with them and traded howls and whoops and throwing rocks and twigs back and forth across the road. So they're having these interactions, but there's craft. Sometimes there's UFOs seen during or before or after a Sasquatch event. And that's where the UFO Bigfoot connection possibly comes in. Are there, is there a correlation?
Me and Ricky's seen orbs in areas down in the area that I had my personal sighting. We had all that stuff happen back in 2011. I mean, it is a rural cemetery. So, does that go more into the did we see, an apparition type of orb, or was it something related to the Bigfoot aspect? So I know a lot of people report orbs or, around areas of activity with Bigfoot.
Yeah. Well, an orb in the spirit world or the paranormal world, the ghost investigation world, are disembodied spirits that either are manifesting energy so they can become visible and interact with humans, or
I'm a paranormal investigator, so I know.
Okay, I'm preaching to the choir, but for the people here on the comment thing, and so if these Sasquatch can come and go from different time zones, so to speak, dimensions, what's to say they're not? That's not their method of travel. They shrink down to an orb and to a power source and go to another dimension and then remanifest themselves.
You're seeing them go into another dimension.
It's the same principle, and you're a paranormal guy, so you know better than I do. But that's an energy. It's just a ball of energy that manifests itself, And my wife saw one here when I was having a Sasquatch event 300 miles away, almost to the minute. She was having an orb flying through our bedroom.
What I don't realize, energy is such a significance to our world.
Mm-hmm.
We are energy. Far as our way our body works, like that's basically how our world works, is energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all pure energy, and the bending of light waves, and It's just, we don't know because we can't do it or don't do it or don't understand it. But it happening in front of more and more people, it's more and more people are coming forward with this stuff. And, I saw this Sasquatch. It was walking across the field and it walked behind a tree and it never came back out. It just disappeared. And it walked behind a tree that was much smaller than it was. So you've got a creature that's 3 foot thick walking by a tree that's a foot and a half wide, and it walks by and then it disappears and it didn't come out the other side. Where'd it go? Well, it just decided to move to the other dimension. It's getting too crowded, too many humans around here. I want to get out of here. So, how do you can't explain it because you're taught that can't even happen. So your mind doesn't even register it. Oh, I must have been seeing it. It must have been that tuna salad for lunch, or something,
But
so
out of all the theories, that is the simplest way to explain it, though. That is, that scientifically, that is the most logic.
Yeah. And science, as we know it, is kind of a joke. I mean, it's, I may have said this last time, but if you want to know how to make a battery out of a potato and a nail and some wire, or the life cycle of a gerbil, well, regular physical science that's all they're going to tell you. But, the science that we know cannot or will not explain what's going on because they don't want to ruin their PhDs or their tenures, professorships. They don't want to go out on a limb, except there's a couple of guys that do, Meldrum and a few others will venture forth as far as they feel like they can go without saying anything because they got degrees and things to worry about. So they'll say, well, the evidence sure does point to something, but I really can't say exactly, But that's all you got to say, that it's possible. That's all. And that's what they do. You got to say, but they won't even say it's possible, And so it's very frustrating, but it's also very fascinating because all I got to do is just get my head wrapped around it and come up with an explanation, And somebody is going to tell me something one day, or I'm going to see something one day and if I'm lucky to have a camera, great. If not, whatever. It's not evidence anyway. But something's going to pop. It just is because it's time. We're at a time in the planet and the evolution of our species and our psyches in our what should be a group effort to make humanity whole and helpful to one another. We're at a point now. We're at a tipping point, and I think maybe that will be the revelation that'll make us go, oh. I think Reagan said it once, we're all this fighting and poverty and famine and wars. What would the world be like if we suddenly were faced with an alien force from out of the world, out of the universe? What would we all think if there was something more powerful and more important than we were? We'd all quit doing what we're doing and try to band together and become one with them, or be more understanding and tolerant of everybody. I mean, that could be the end game of all that's going on. We're going to finally know what's really going on in the world, not what they tell us, because that's what we have to go by, is what they've told us for years and thousands of years and hundreds, that's all we have to go is what we see, and we blow off the stuff we can't explain or don't want to explain because our minds won't let us, because that's what we're taught. So, and so these people coming through, Deborah Blashlock, portals. Yeah, that's a good word. Different portals, and they, somebody could be sitting right next to me. There's another Carter sitting right over here. I hope he's better looking than I am. There could be another Blake sitting right next to you. Another Ricky sitting over there, right behind you. There could be another Ricky, another version. We don't know. We're just told that can't be. So, well, that's just, that's nonsense. These creatures may have a lot more skill sets than anybody's ready to imagine or admit. That's why I'm chasing this stuff down, because you can't ignore the silence is deafening from everybody listening who's going, it's baloney. It's not baloney. They're these regular, sane people, politicians, cops, pilots, Air Force pilots, people with trained observers are telling you things. Well, are they nuts too? Their employment depends on them being trained observers and truthful and honest, no matter what it is they're seeing or relating to you. Just the facts, man, like Jack Webb said, Dragnet. Just the facts, man. Well, this is the facts. This is what happened. This is what I saw. This is what those person saw. Well, they're not lying. They're just not making it up. They have nothing to gain. They just don't, but nobody wants to listen to it, except you guys, and others. But you know what I mean? And nobody wants to hear it because it doesn't happen. It can't happen. So these people are all nuts. They're smoking the good stuff, whatever,
It's like, man, back in '81, I had my first sighting, and it was for probably 20 years, and I never told anyone about it because of the fact that back then, if you got out here and admitted you'd saw Sasquatch, back at that time, you'd ended up down here summers in one of the regional hospitals in a straggit.
How'd you explain that? I mean, it was what it was. It's your reality. Yeah, nobody can take that away from you. It happened. You saw it. You're a sane, rational human being that, goes to work, eats, sleeps, goes to church, and, goes to the grocery store, and you saw something. Well, that's anybody who's had these experiences, it's their reality. You can't take it away from them. It happened. And so you can try to take it away from them, but it happened. All you do is make them go underground and say nothing to anybody ever again. That's all you do when you disrespect it and just say, oh, it's baloney, it never happened, couldn't happen. That's all they do. You buy silence by just beating them down with denial. And so they'll always remember it happened, and they'll tell you, I know what I saw and I know what I didn't see. And so I can't necessarily tell you what it was, but I can tell you what it was not. And when someone explains that to you in that just simplest of terms, that's very logical and very understandable, and I can't necessarily explain it, but I believe you saw it and I believe it happened. And one day I'll be able to tell you exactly what it was or exactly how it did what you said it did, what you saw. But right now I can't explain it, but I can guarantee you it happened because you saw it and you're telling me, and you don't want anything for this. You just want a voice. You want a soft place to land and tell your stories. So, I've seen all kinds of weird stuff. The Sasquatch I saw in 2013, 14 in Missouri that just vanished while I was watching it on thermal. It just poof, big flash of smoke and disappeared. What am I to think of that? A camera malfunction, my thermal gear not working properly? Well, no, that wasn't it. It just vanished. It just exploded in a flash of light and left the outline. Looked like somebody blew a Sasquatch smoke ring. It was exactly what it looked like. And then it just dissipated and it was gone. 11 o'clock at night. I mean, it is what it is. If I was not with some really ignorant people, I would have told most everybody there. But it was an expedition I was leading. I didn't want to get into a debate right in the middle of an expedition. So, but I told several people later the next morning, and they were going, oh my God. So we went and reenacted it, went and measured, where I was standing in the tree that was standing by when it vanished, and it came around a corner. And so we reenacted it, with people who are open-minded and go, wow. They weren't, telling you, are you sure, man? It was like, wow, because some people believe this stuff, but they won't say it out loud because they looking around for other people to be snickering and looking at them, So there's people that believe, they just don't want to talk about it because they don't want to catch crap like everybody else does. So, but when I saw that, I'm not hallucinating. I wasn't smoking. I wasn't drinking. I was leading an expedition for BFRO. So I had, 20 or 30 people, I was responsible for. So I wasn't altered in any way. And it is what it is. It was what it was. I saw it. And, what do you say to that? What can I can't explain it, but that was the birth of it's not a dumb ape in the woods. From 2013 or 14, whatever year it was, I think I was 14. I was in a different camp. That was it. And that's not something that, my camera was working great. It was not a hallucination of any kind. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't mistaken. It happened. And you can't take that away from me, just like the UFOs and stuff you guys have seen and the lights and orbs. It happened. You may not be able to say exactly what it was and what it was, but you know it happened, and it's just like somebody seeing a Sasquatch crossing the road or watching you while you're fishing. Oh my God, I never thought that would happen to me, but it did. And it's your reality.
It's like all the paranormal things I've had happen to me. I mean, somebody can't tell me that I haven't seen those things. You know what I'm saying? Like I know what I know what I've had happen.
Mm-hmm. So why the argument? You know, because there is no argument. You know, you just divide yourself into two camps. That can happen, and it's entirely possible to happen. You know,
well, that's like, Carter. It's like the photo I sent you that my 80-year-old brother took.
Yeah,
he just opened his back door, took a picture,
what do you think about that picture, Carter?
Well, that's pretty cool. I ran it through a couple of photo programs. I turned it into black and white and then a negative, and it looks like it's a humanoid type creature sitting on the ground with its arms kind of around its knee or on one knee. It's kind of got its knees up to its chest, you know, and a lot of people say that's how they travel and leave this dimension and go to another, is they have to, you know, get into a certain position, which I'm not sure I understand the need for that, but you know, it looked humanoid. It is what it is, and that's in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, where was that? Was that?
That was in Murray County, Chatsworth, Georgia. Well, about 20 miles outside Chatsworth.
His property, or just
his property.
Okay.
His backyard.
Awesome. That's so cool. That was a great photo. I mean, that's cool, and it
coming from him. They're and that's what I like about that picture. You know, he's an older gentleman. He has, you know, that's what that he just took that picture. You know, that's it. They're no more reading into what it is, what it could be. He just took the picture.
No, as I explained to you,
what it is, you know, it's not a hoax. It's not, you know, it is what it is.
He had, like I was explaining, you know, he's got like 10 dogs up there on the property. Every one of his dogs, the night that he took that picture, had all ran up under the house and hid.
There you go.
Wasn't barking, wasn't doing nothing. Every one of them completely silent. He heard something outside. He opened the back door, thought maybe it was a prowler. He snapped that picture with his phone, and that's what you got.
Did he see it when he snapped the picture, or was he just snapping?
No, he did not see it. He did not see anything.
He was just taking a picture to see if he caught something.
Right.
Yeah. That's even more random. See, but that's not even like a stage thing. You know, did he have a belief system one way or the other before that?
Well, no, not really. He told me one time, said, brother, there's things out there that people don't understand. He said, I'm not here to say that I believe or don't believe in them. That's his whole deal on the thing.
Yeah, well, kind of where we're at. This guy here, praying and squatching, he says, I think the dumb ape camp is getting smaller and smaller by the day, and that scares him. That is absolutely true, you know, and my reports to BFRO have been sanitized, censored, redacted, and just butchered. Anything paranormal taken out. They'll publish a report, but the good stuff's taken out. And I didn't catch on to that until about a year ago, and I started making copies of my reports before I sent them in. So I have the before, and then when they got published, I've had about almost 100 reports published to BFRO. And so I got my report when I turned it in, and then I made another copy of the one that you can read on BFRO.net. And the good stuff is gone. The important stuff, the paranormal, abstract, intelligence stuff is taken out. There's one, and a couple of the witnesses emailed me back and said, hey, what's the deal with it? That's not what I told you. I have no control over that, and I'm really, really sorry. If you want, I'll give you their email, and you can contact, Matt and see what he has to say. Not a word, not a response, nothing. And it's insulting. not to me. I mean, I did the work. I know what I heard and I know what they told me, but it's insulting to the witnesses who are bearing their soul and telling you these things, And so that database is polluted because it's probably one of the largest databases in the world. And who knows how many reports have been redacted and tampered with to take anything remotely paranormal out of it, And this guy was devastated, because this was a life-altering event for him and his two buddies. And it's unacceptable, But that's just the logic, It's the same thing as the media and the government and the Forestry Service and everybody. They're not saying what they know because they don't want it out there. They want to keep it nice and plain and simple, They got a TV show to project.
I'm going to have to jump off here. It's getting late.
Okay. Well, that's 11 o'clock. It's 11:15 your time. Heck, yeah, you're past your bedtime there, buddy.
Well, yeah, I haven't ate
Carter?
dinner yet.
Go ahead, Blake. What?
I got to get ready for work
Oh,
tomorrow.
I got it. That's cool. Rick,
Carter,
what?
I'm going to we're putting together a show. I'm going to have about 5 people on. I'd like for you to join the show. It'll be in a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. As soon as I get all the details put together on it, I got a couple of good friends out of Texas that I'm going to invite on. We're just going to have kind of a roundtable discussion on all this.
That'd be awesome. I love those. I love that stuff. Yeah. Well, let me pimp my books one more time. Sasquatch Evidence of an Enigma 2. This is the new one. It's got some mind-boggling stuff in there, especially with the gifting of those rocks. Those rocks on there represent me and 4 expedition goers, and there's a rock at the other end which represents the partner. It's a great story, but and then this is the first book, Sasquatch Evidence of an Enigma 1 and 2. www.relichominid.com. RELICHOMINID. And these are books they're in color, and I autograph them and send them out, and it's reasonably priced, thousands of dollars, but you can afford it. But no, I'd love to be on that show. That would be cool. I mean, that's the kind of, I love that roundtable stuff. Even if you got some, pro and con guys, I don't believe that. I believe that, I like that stuff, and taking some of these people got some good comments here on your trailer. Yeah, I mean, really good stuff. See, Deborah Blashlock, not baloney to me. I'm 63 and I got my world rocked too. These people just like this, they're having their own experiences, and if they're esoteric, abstract, or paranormal or quantum, you're not going to hear about it, not on the normal reporting avenues. You'll hear about it, other way. Like
I got a good guy, Richard Stewart, that I'm going to try my best to get on when we do the round table. Richard's from Texas. Richard is wholeheartedly into the deal with the quantum physics and all with all this. I think you really enjoy the show, and like I said, as soon as I get everything put together on it, I'll let you know, and maybe it'll be a good night for us.
That'd be awesome. Well, just let me know as soon as you can. I think I've got 2 more shows scheduled for like July sometime. I don't have a whole lot going now, but in July. But just let me know when you got it, and we'll do it.
Okay, I appreciate it.
It's awesome, man.
Thank you as always, Carter.
This has been cool. This is cool as heck. So I love all the comments you guys are getting in here. I didn't see this last time. Arthur Shahane, why do you think BFRO is sanitizing reports? Because they don't want you to think that these creatures are more than a dumb ape in the woods. That's my patent answer right there. They just don't have an open mind. And, they used to, and they had me research it for them a while back, and now they just don't want anything to do with it because they have a TV show to protect. Can't sell tampons and beer if these Bigfoots are walking around, flying UFOs and, disappearing behind a tree. People ain't buying that. They want me to go bang on a tree, buy some beer, buy some tampons. Here we go. See you next week. Maybe we'll find them next week or the week after. Oh, no, we won't. God dang it. Why? Well, because if we find them, then the show's over. We can't sell shit. So
Exactly. Got to keep the show rolling.
And I love all my friends in BFR, I love you to death. Has nothing to do with any of the people there, but the main person who's sabotaging everything. I just find that very distasteful. It's just tacky, So, we found a pebble on my bumper. This lady's having some stuff go on here. Well, I'll let you guys go. This was awesome, guys. Thanks for letting me come out here and lie to you. It's been awesome.
Carter, we really enjoyed it, man. And like I said, as soon as I get this other put together, I'll let you know, brother.
Okie dokie.
I appreciate it, man.
Give me a link when you can. I'll put it on my page, and we'll keep going.
All right, we'll sure do it. Thank you, man.
All right,
Thank you, Carter.
Good night. See you.
All right, Blake, you want to close her out, buddy?
Sorry to cut it short, Carter. I do apologize, buddy, if you're still watching. I just got to eat dinner and get ready for work tomorrow. And as always, guys, thank you for the support. If you don't mind, go check out Carter's books. Buy a couple, buy 10 of them, 20 of them, ever how many. Buy one for everybody in your family. But anyways, thank you, guys. If you don't mind, go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, and a comment. And I hope everyone has a good night.
All right, guys, and as always, God bless. Thank you for watching. This is Rick Weaver, Blake Duckworth, Northwest Georgia Cryptics. And again, thanks, Carter, for being on the show tonight. A couple of weeks, I'm going to try to get a roundtable discussion together. Hope everyone will join in for that. Good night, everybody.